Okay, everybody, it's episode 35 of the CSW podcast. We got Alan Chambers with us and Jesse Briggs with us, two of our affiliates, and of course, me and Alan. So what's going on today, guys? Alan Baker.
Not so much.
Alan Baker, what are we getting into?
Well, we was run through a few dates that we have real quick for the association. They're coming up this year. Coach camps, we have one August 5th through 7th. That one's going to be in California. The next one's going to be in November 4th through 6th, and that one's going to be in Atlanta. This year, one thing we're doing additional to the program is we have a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu coach camp set up. As everybody knows, we started the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu program a few years ago, and it has really grown to the point where we wanted to have an individual event just for our instructors. So it's a 3-day event that's going to be in August on the 26th through the 28th in California. And lastly, the World Conference is coming up, and that's going to be April 7th through the 10th. And today we have two of our senior coaches from the organization on the podcast, Coach Alan and Coach Jesse. They also have been helping out with our advisor program in the organization. And what that is generally we'll have guys from all walks of the industry join the association. Some guys have been running a full-time martial arts academy for 20 years or more. But you have some that are just getting started in the industry, and their goal is to run a full-time academy and grow their school. And when we work with those guys, generally when they come into the organization, we'll connect them with someone to advise them, to mentor them, and help them grow their business, their own training, to develop their martial art program inside their academy. And Alan and Jesse are part of that team. So, Alan and Jesse. How's it going, guys?
Great. Excited to be here. So thank you, guys.
Awesome.
So, Jess, how long have you been in the martial arts?
Man, I've been in martial arts consistently since I was a kid. So probably 30 plus years.
Wow.
Yeah.
As far as the different martial arts that you've studied, what all have you done?
Oh, man. Well, obviously, usually I started with karate when I was a kid. And then when I was in high school, I kind of fell out of that, did wrestling. I wrestled in high school. And then I kind of rediscovered martial arts when I went back to college. And I studied capoeira, went to Brazil, went to Rio quite a few times and did that for a long time, got into it. During that time, that's when the UFC kind of just started. And so kind of got into that, was doing shoot fighting, different stuff. Judo as well. I think I started judo back then too. So I was doing judo and shoot fighting. And then I then got into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And that's just pretty much been the biggest one that I've done. I fought MMA for a little bit. Yeah.
Who'd you start BJJ with?
I started with Ricardo Almeida in New Jersey.
You're East Coast guy?
Yeah, man. You didn't know that?
No. Where are you
from?
I'm
a trainer.
Where?
Yeah. I grew up in a town called Cookstown. It's like central, like right outside of Trenton.
Okay.
Yeah.
My wife's from Jersey.
Oh, no kidding.
Cool. Man, we got all four of us are East Coasters then.
Well.
Wow, how rare. That's awesome. What about you, Alan Chambers? What's your background?
A very similar path that Jesse took. I started off doing karate at a young age, followed it through into my teens. And then through my teens and into college, really my teens, I started playing sports really, really heavily. And then when I get into college, wasn't good enough to play D1 or D2 and couldn't really afford to train martial arts. I got really obsessed with studying martial arts. So at the time, I don't think YouTube even existed at that point. So it was me collecting VHS tapes and rare books and DVDs and whatever I could find and just nerding out in my free time with that. So whatever money I could, scrounge up, I was buying all those things and kind of nerding out about it. in addition to, having some extracurricular activities with my spend money. But that was most of my money spent collecting. I still collect tons and tons of books and DVDs as well. I have a big martial arts and fitness collection. Some of them go back to like 1800. So that's one of my vices. But as soon as I got a full-time job out of college, I went back into martial arts, and everything I had been studying for 4 years kind of came to fruition, and I kind of went crazy, and it's been a nonstop obsession ever since. So I've really started off right when I got out of school. Let's see, the first thing I took was I started taking some boxing classes that eventually evolved into submission wrestling. And at the time, it was actually the instructor was a black belt in pancration, which I had read about. It's really, really rare to find someone that actually teaches that. But I wanted more. So then I started doing Thai boxing, JKD in there, kind of went back to some Japanese martial arts. And basically every day of the week, I was doing something different or multiple lessons whenever I could. I'd do stuff in the morning, do private lessons, just nuts with it. And then soon after I started teaching. And really, I'd say the core things that I've pursued over the years are obviously different grappling styles, BJJ, catch wrestling, which CSW plays a huge part in. And then also JKD, Kali, Kung Tao are really my kind of four focuses that I've been focusing on the past decade plus. So I guess overall my venture's probably been 20 plus years, with some gaps in there, but overall those have been what I've pursued and why I've pursued them too. So I still do. I'm very excited and happy to be able to pass those on whenever I can.
Awesome. I've seen both of you guys working with people. You're really good with, the other affiliates at the coach camps and with the students. It's really good to see it. You're very relatable and you can break things down in great detail, very knowledgeable, good background. It's easy to spot that. That's why you're in this position. Because we saw that you were the two first parts of this thing that we're moving deeper into with having expanding this because Coach Erik can't be everywhere all the time, and how his brain works. He blew my mind again yesterday. He's got the recall, I don't know how he does it. And I was complimenting him too much on our phone call yesterday, so he switched the topic because he hates that. You start blowing smoke at him, he's just like, he just goes to something else. But no, it's really freaky because we were, we're going to be writing again today. MMA is coming along really well. There's just so much. And I just showed Alan the outline before we got on here. It's really, huge. And then taking that and trying to distill it down, which is part of the skill set that you guys have that's so good. But taking this big mountain of stuff and trying to distill it down is really hard for normal people like me. But Erik, I don't know how he does it. He literally can recall everything, and he can do it too. I was just doing some Guru Dan footage, little tangent. I was working on some Guru Dan footage the other day, and in that footage, Guru brings up Erik. He's like, he's very rare. Not only can he remember all of it, but he can just do everything. It just works for him. But we're not like that. Like it's really odd how he can just do everything. He's one of those wizards who can it just seems to work for him. But the rest of us, we kind of need a little bit more simple system, something where we can break it down. And I was talking to Jesse last year at one of the coach camps out in California, and Jesse gave me a good piece of feedback because we have thousands of videos in the online library. It's for reference. So you can always go back to that and look at those things and do your research. That's what we're building, is an archive for our affiliates and our members to look at. So eventually, if you want to, you can go up through that and become a coach. But Jesse's feedback was, you know what I like? I like the written material. He goes, because I just want to pull out those outlines and I can go train them. He goes, because I've looked at the videos, hundreds and hundreds of times. I just need that sheet right there. And that was good feedback. So, getting feedback from all the members and from, our lead coaches, all those guys is really valuable to us as we're putting this stuff together, because that really affected like how I'm putting this stuff together from the technical side, because it's like, wow, most people don't give you that feedback. They just sort of lurk, and they might like it, but they don't tell you. So a little notice to everybody listening: if you got feedback, even if it's bad feedback, we do like to hear it, because we'll change the product to fit and try to make it better all the time. So I'm filibustering a little bit. So, but it just brought it up because you guys are, like Erik is, I mean, once again, that's why he's Erik Paulson. Like he can do stuff that I haven't seen too many other people be able to do. But you guys, watching you working with people, you've got great attitudes. You're not smashing people and all that. And unless you get with somebody that's another lion, because I've seen a little bit of that. When you guys decide you have that agreement, it's like, okay, let's go. We've seen some of that when you want to have some fun. So not only can you really do it at a high level, but you're really good at working with people. So that's good to see. And, people gravitate towards that and they want to work with you. So you're good mentors.
Well, thank you.
Thanks, Bob.
We all just admitted that we blow all of our money on martial arts. So we got to make sure that the significant other does not listen to this podcast.
You guys need to have a bat cave. That's where you keep all that stuff.
I have multiple bat caves, this being one of them. So this is my home office, and I get, when I'm doing my day job, I have conference calls, and either people are really intrigued by what I have in the background, particularly the sword,
Nice.
Or people get really freaked out and they're like, why do you have a sword in the back? And I just explain to people that it's a good icebreaker too. That's by proxy.
That's how you butter your bread, right?
Yeah.
Of course. Literally and proverbially.
So you're going to have to do an Alan Chambers Batcave tour at some point, because I'm always doing mine. I'm always showing like, hey, here's the latest setup. Here's another nerd thing. Like, people love that stuff.
Yeah, that'd be fun to do, because I have my bookshelf over there with all my books, and then I have like a mini dojo in my basement, and I have a pegboard wall with all my weapons up on it. And when people come down, it has like neon lights around it and everything, or LED lights, I should say. And I call it my John Wick wall. So people get freaked out, and there's batons and knives and sticks and handcuffs, and people are like, what do you do down here? And it's pretty amusing.
Jesse wants to go somewhere with this, but we won't.
Jesse has one of those for other reasons.
A disco ball hanging in it.
Yeah, that's very similar to my bat cave. Like right behind there in that door, that's my training room. My Wing Chun dummies right there with the TV over it. And I had to buy a new bracket for that, though. I don't know if you saw that. I posted that a while back, the dummy setup with the TV over it. And I do custom edits of the dummy sets so I can slow them down, and I can throw it from my editing system over to the Apple TV that's behind it. But my training partner, Steve, comes over, and he's over there banging away on the dummy, and the TV's like doing this. I had to buy a new bracket. I had to get a stronger bracket because he's banging the crap out of my I was like, Steve, you have to go lighter. It's not for forearm conditioning. I'm like, you got to do the sets on it, man. You're trying to break my dummy. That's cool. You have a bat cave set up, Jesse?
I do not. My wife sees patients. She's a nurse practitioner, so we share an office, and so it's more her stuff than it is mine. I'm in the office at the academy. That's kind of my getaway. And we had a huge argument about the garage, because it's a 2-car garage, and I put all my gear. I got mats in there and stuff, and it was a real big point of contention, because she's like, I want to put my car in the garage. So, yeah.
And you've seen some of the footage of Erik's old garage, right? And his old
oh yeah,
kind of lots of videos came out of that garage, and there's still all the stuff in it too. He just threw a mat in the middle, and then they're like falling into equipment and bikes and stuff.
Yeah, I think he just put one up on Instagram yesterday. Doing some Sambo stuff. I think it's pretty cool.
Well, speaking of tapes, that's part of what's going on here. I can't show you because the camera's fixed, but I think I captured 59 DVDs in the archive, and I've got 80 VHS tapes over here in a stack that I'm they have to play real time to put them in my system so we can break them up. But it's almost his and the rest of, because I've been working on it for years. His arc, he brought me a suitcase full of stuff last month at the seminar at Pat Trey's. And I've sorted it all. I've gone through all of it. And every day that thing's running all day, capturing all of it, all that old stuff, all the garage stuff. Just had some Chad Stahelski footage in there of them training back in the day before anybody was famous. All that cool stuff. So it's neat. So he was like that too. I mean, well, we all are, but had all the stuff. And his knowledge goes really deep. Like he was researching stuff because I was looking yesterday at some footage of him from 20 years ago. I'm like, man, you already had it worked out. You had it worked out back then. Like years and years ago. And you look, I can prove it. Like, because there's date stamps on the video. I'm like, all this stuff, because it comes back around. Guys are like, well, these leg locks are new. And it's like, I have footage of the guy doing them decades ago and doing them very well.
Yeah, that's one of those things that, maybe I'm biased, and I'm sure all of us are to some degree, but to see what Sensei Paulson has done, especially you look back 25, 30, 35 years ago, and he was doing stuff that no one was doing. It's literally taken 30 years for people to actually catch up and start to innovate from those things that he's already done. It is really a testament to him and his knowledge and what he's put together over the years. But it's super fascinating to see that. And then, it causes some contention with people because they want to name things and do other things. Not to say that you can or you don't. It's martial arts, it's your own personal style. But at the same time, myself, and I know all of you do it as well, I'm kind of a bibliography for and from where I've learned things. So I always try and give credit where it's due. And as things evolve, that doesn't always happen.
Yeah. Even when you get creative, it's kind of tough to put a video up because you kind of know. It's like, I know Coach has something on there. It's like, like I feel like, I can't really, like, I feel like it's my thing, but you can't, because it's like, well, Coach did this back in this video in 1992, and
Greg Nelson told that story about, remember that, Alan? The one we just did with Greg. He said they would get together because in the old days you had to go to seminars to get this stuff. There was no YouTube to get it from, and they would get their stuff and work it for 6 months and go back and show Guru Dan a thing they figured out. And he goes, oh, geez, like here's 37 counters to the thing you just came up with. It's like, oh man.
Oh yeah. We put those together 30 years ago.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I forgot those. Yeah. Oh, here they are. Oh man. So what else are we getting into, Alan?
I am curious. I've never had this conversation with these guys. When you first met Erik and got involved with Coach Erik, this usually turns into a really good story. How about you, Jess?
Oh man. Well, I was I running my account? Yeah, I was, I think I opened up, I was still working for the government. And I was looking because you guys came out with the STX program, like super recent. And I was subscribing to the website, and, it's weird when you have you'll see people publicly, like martial arts instructors and things, and they seem like they're cool guys. And then you meet them and you're like, and they end up being like,
you can say bad words.
Okay. Yeah. They end up being dicks or just having a bad attitude. And like, that's one of the things that I really hate about martial arts sometimes is that negative side. And I remember I come to California and I was going to make my decision of whether or not I was going to get affiliated based on, I came to one of the world conferences. I can't remember what year it was. But I went, and it was like, I met you guys. You guys were like super cool, very helpful. And the same thing with Coach. And I really enjoyed the training, how Coach was with everybody. And we did like some meditation stuff that was super cool that I'd never done before. And I was just like, yeah, man, I'm in. And then the rest is history.
Awesome. Coach Allen, how about you?
I'm trying to think of when it was. I want to say maybe 2009, 2010, maybe 2010.
That recent? Really?
No, let me see. 10.
I think you've been around longer than that, haven't you?
Man, he's making me feel old.
Me too.
I'm trying to think. No, maybe I have that wrong.
I'm pretty sure you've been around longer than that.
It was probably 12 years ago.
Okay.
2008, maybe. So he was at John Potenza's, and I was looking, his East Coast schedule wasn't as deep as it is now. And I think it was a purple belt at the time. And I went to the seminar, met him, started talking to him. I had asked him a question at the time. I was writing for a grappling blog, and he saw my shirt. He's like, De La Riva. And I was like, yeah. I trained under De La Riva lineage. And then we started talking. And then after the seminar, he kept asking me questions about the guard and, where I was from, what I was doing in training. And I told him I had followed him for years and I've always wanted to train with him. And then I remember John came downstairs and handed him a 6-pack of like Bud Light Lime. And he started drinking them. And he's like, here, have a beer. And then we talked for like 3 hours about everything martial arts. And I was like, I don't care. I'm happy just to learn and listen. But his knowledge on the mat too was unbelievable. And that's sold me ever since. So I've been with him probably 12, 14 years, something like that, officially. So that kind of sold me on that. And we had a ton of fun just talking and him sharing stories and memories, and then sharing some of my experience and bouncing questions off of him. So.
Very cool. Very cool. When did you meet him, Alan Baker?
It was probably early to mid 90s. I hesitate to say early because I'm dating myself here. I got introduced to him through Guru Dan. He came out as when he was traveling with Guru.
Yep. And
he was the demonstration partner. Met him at the Francis Fong Academy, and just amazed by it. He had done an additional session, and they had announced, hey, if you would like to work out with Coach Erik, we're going to do it this time. And it wasn't a large group of guys, and he kicked our butts. I mean, it was just like 2 to 3 hours of just running us to death. One of those sessions where you take the group photo at the end and you just look like you've been beat. And so that was my initial introduction, and I got in touch with him after he had gone back, and I said, hey, I want to do more. I want to learn more. So he was like, just come to California. And there were not a lot of details. Just, okay, when do you want me? This day, this time. Flew out and checked into the room, contacted him again. And he's like, are you going to be at this place at this time? And so I show up and it's a warehouse, and then not a gym. And I'm okay, waiting, and called him, and we're in the back corner of the building. So, okay, so go back. And sure enough, it's like in the back corner of this warehouse. There were some mats thrown down and just a meat grinder.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Same thing happened. Just hammered it for 2 or 3 hours. And after that, I'm like, look, I'm sold. What do I do next? And just started following him. And, anywhere I could catch up to him, or if I had an opportunity when I go out to Guru's, if I could catch him, spend a little time with him. But that was my experience.
Awesome.
Because back when he used to just machine gun techniques.
Yeah.
I don't think he realized that the rest of the world couldn't keep up until 2005, maybe.
Well, back then, like half the seminar didn't come back the second day.
Yeah.
That's how it used to be.
That is so true. Yeah, he used to do events in Jacksonville too. I used to go down for those, and the first day, packed. Second day, 10 guys.
Yeah, nobody could move because you'd had to do Shudo footwork for 2 hours.
And he'd get going on a, say, I don't know, submission from side control, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and he'd just zone.
Yeah.
Then he'd look up and everybody'd be standing there with their mouths open, and he'd be like, that's too much. Right? Let's just do these 5.
Yeah. Even now when he does it, it's like you have to, I felt like it took me about 2 years to adjust to be able to like remember 9 submissions in a row.
Yeah.
You know, it's like all of a sudden your brain starts to change where you're like, oh, okay, I could do 7 now in a row. But before it's like, oh my God, it's very overwhelming at first, man.
It's one of the things.
We're talking too that, back then he was doing things that I'd never seen at that time. You see some obscure ground stuff in different systems. Saw a little bit in Burmese Bondo, Japanese Jiu-Jitsu at that time. But, he was doing that stuff ahead of his time. But one other thing is his delivery of it. I don't see that delivery method too often. Usually one technique, go train it. One technique, go train it. And he puts things together, I'm assuming much like what he learned in Shudo, in a series. And, I still don't see that method too often. And it's a fantastic method.
Guridan does that. He has a story structure. Usually, I like my guys when we would go to seminars, I'd have to, after years and years and years of looking at it, you can kind of go, oh, because he's a teacher, so he'll give you the prefix, he'll give you the middle, and he'll give you the suffix. And usually when he shows it, somewhere in that 3-part structure is the variable. So like the prefix will be the same and the suffix will be the same, and then there's 7 variables in the middle. Or you can swap it, like 7 endings, and the beginning and the middle are the same. And if you can figure out what the key is, because your brain can't wrap around that much stuff all at once. But if you can go, oh, I got that. I only need to remember these 6 things or these 7 things. And then you can sort of just, okay, that. And then you can catalog it. Then you can focus on actually just doing those things because it's automatic to do the other parts. And just that's how I do my notes now. So that I'll do like a little chart, and then it's like, these are the key things. These are the things that changed. That these things are always the same. And Erik is much like that too, but it's a little bit different because Erik, he goes into orbit with it, and then there's variable, and several variables in the different parts. It's like, wait a minute, hold on a second. Now you lost me. You're into astrophysics now. I can't follow you.
I think I refer to it like templates. They're templates instead of like just like the one technique too, where that's in there, and there's all those details. But if you have this big template that you remember, and I kind of structure my private lessons that way now, where it's like, all right, we're doing the 7 this. So you're gonna remember 7 things, and then you just go. If you remember 5, you're like, oh crap, there's 2 more that I'm missing. It makes it a little bit easier.
What's one of your private sessions look like? Take me through one. What the structure would be.
Oh, well, it's funny you say that. I'm actually restructuring my private lessons, but I'd say it used to be a little bit more old school where we come in and I kind of have an idea, because mostly it's mostly my students. And so there are things that I work in. I usually try to cover things that are a little bit more outside the curriculum. So I really stick very strictly to the CSW curriculum because I think it helps guys to stay organized. Before I was doing CSW stuff in class, it's kind of like you're kind of chasing the jiu-jitsu dragon, where it's like, you're seeing what everybody's doing out here and this. And I'd say over like a 6-month period, you don't see the kind of growth of the students the way that you want to. And so a couple of years back, I said, all right, I'm only sticking to the curriculum when I teach. And it is actually a service that you do to your students because you see their understanding of the foundational principles is so much better. They're better in all the positions, their fundamental techniques. It's kind of like the same way you learn math, where it's like you can't do calculus until you have addition, subtraction, and multiplication, division, all of those things down. So I try to look at some of the newer stuff that's going on, maybe, and try to relate it to the foundational stuff. Because like I said, if you look through Erik's catalog of material that's available, you'll find something that relates to whatever it is. I mean, for example, we talk about like Squig Guard. There's another guard called Squirrel Guard somebody made up. It's literally the way that I saw a video of Erik setting up the knee bar from the closed guard. Mm-hmm. And he has some real simple ways of doing it where it's in the curriculum, you know what I mean? But I went off on a tangent there, but we talk about private lessons. what I'll do is I'll come up with a template, and usually I want to cover one or two different things that aren't related. So if I see a guy, he's kind of, starting to work with the lapels, I might put together a series of techniques. Let's say if I'm doing guard, for example, usually I try to do in a private lesson 3 techniques from the guard. And the reason I do 3 is because when you put somebody in a position, when you wait for a reaction, there's only 3 ways that they can kind of react to it. They're either going to try to force their way through it, try to back out of it, or they kind of hesitate and are neutral. And so I try to find 3 answers for each of those. And that'll be what I'll do for that first technique. And then I'll come up with another technique, depending on what the position is or what they're having trouble with. Right. And then usually there'll be a little bit of time left, and I'll let them kind of riff on some things that maybe they're having trouble with some of the guys in class or something. And then that way it ends up to be about 7 or 8 things where I go, all right, you have these 8 things. Those are your 8 things. Go write it down so that you know what it is that you need to work on.
That's awesome.
And that's it. Yeah.
That's good. What about yours, Alan?
So for me, I'm always really big on kind of holistic learning. And it really depends. So I tailor all of my private lessons specifically for the needs of the person. So if they're trying to pursue, say, CSW, I'm going to be really specific to the curriculum and teach it the way I feel that Sensei Paulson and the other instructors teach it. So that's really big for me. Otherwise, if I'm teaching other things that may or may not be curriculum based, or if it's my own thing, I'm tailoring it specifically for them regardless. But if I'm going to do it, I'm always big on building a solid foundation that you can continue to build upon throughout all your lessons, whether it's with me or with someone else. So if I'm teaching, say, grappling, I usually start standing and then go to the ground, or go to the ground to standing. For me, that's big, having that transition points. I think that's one thing that's missing in a lot of arts, but even modern day BJJ, it's just, singular one or the other. I want to tailor it. So say if we're doing arm bars, we're going to focus on one, what do I do standing to get to a position where I can achieve the arm bar? And that could be from a standing position, or it could be from a grounded position, or vice versa. And the way I like to teach, again, kind of that holistic thought behind there is, I want people to understand, regardless at any level, of the mechanics of the arm bar, as opposed to the arm bar from X, or the arm bar in this scenario. I think if you're able to teach the basic mechanics of the arm bar and the basic principles of that, people say an arm bar is an arm bar, right? Kind of the JKD principle, a kick is a kick, right? Or a punch is a punch. So if you understand fulcrum, lever, base, and what you're trying to do, you should be able to apply an arm bar in any position, right? So top, bottom, mount, guard, half guard. So if we're doing that, we try and find those opportunities in the standing position, and then going down to the ground. And okay, I've landed here, I've taken the person down, I've established a position of dominance, and preferably one that's a pin. Where does this submission live, and where can I hit it from? So oftentimes it's prompted by a question. Go, well, can I do it from here? Can I do it from there? You can do it from anywhere, right? And that's how I see things, as a root, and then kind of the branches kind of diverging and converging into a single root of everything.
That's cool.
Nice. So what is your preferred, or what's your combination preference of reference material for these guys? So they get their personal interaction with you, they take their own notes, and what feedback have you gotten? Do guys, like Jesse told me, like, do guys like to look at the outlines more? Does that do it for them, or does the video do it for them more, or a combination of both? What feedback have you received? Have you received any feedback on that?
Alan or me?
Alan first, and then we'll come back to you, Jesse.
Roger.
So I would say for those who are in the organization, most people have watched the videos countless times, much like all of us. So I think that's a big part of it. Most practitioners who have been in the system a long time, and even though some newer, but definitely those who have been in the system a long time, have some form of notebook where they utilize the curriculum for notes. But that's not everyone. I'd say that the biggest difference is pairing kind of the bridge between watching the video and reading, right? Kind of the visual, the auditory, and then the
kinesthetic,
audiovisual, the kinesthetic awareness and the tactile feel of actually doing it or seeing it in person, and kind of that 3D look, whether it's someone just demonstrating what the mechanics are or having it being done to you or someone else as a uke. I think that's the biggest difference. Combining those two is where I've seen people provide me the most feedback. They go, okay, I saw this, I read it, I understand that this template of the curriculum keeps me informed of where I need to continue to improve on and keep moving forward with, but it's seeing it or feeling it, really feeling it is big. And I'm really big on tactile awareness. That's really big for me.
What about you, Jesse?
A little bit of everything. Everybody's kind of a mixture of, audio, visual, kinesthetic learners. And so, you try to just shotgun blast it in all different ways and kind of just, get a feel for your students and see what it is that really, really helps them. Some of my guys, I let them videotape. If I do a technique, sometimes I'll let them videotape it for privates. I won't let them videotape the entire private just because that's that makes me feel weird. But I will, I'll re-demo the techniques. I just did a thing for a bunch of law enforcement agents that already go overseas and train some military police units in the Middle East, and they asked me to videotape it. So I gave them the whole day. We worked on all the stuff, and then what I did is I just video demoed each piece so that they can look back. It is weird, even with the phone, because the same thing. I used to just take notes. And I remember it was like when I started jiu-jitsu, I would draw little stick figure pictures of all the techniques and how the grip goes in the collar and this. And now it just seems people just record and that's enough for them. But for me, it's like I'm very kinesthetic. So I probably gravitate more that way. But, I try to provide some visual and the audio things that help them, get through it.
The reason I ask is just because, we're constantly writing, constantly putting this stuff together. And I'm trying to make it as easy as possible to give, affiliates and coaches templates for this kind of stuff. So, it gets to the end of the day and your brain's fried. Like even the professionals, like you can't think. You're like, man, I don't know what we're doing tonight. It's nice if you can just grab a piece of material and go, oh yeah, okay, I'm going to do that. I'm going to do this thing. So, and you get back to the kinesthetic awareness. I'll jump off on a little bit of a tangent. Alan Chambers was there. We were just at Trident, and I was in heaven because I wasn't filming that day. I wasn't taking pictures. I got to train the whole day. I mean, I was turning purple because I have high blood pressure, and Erik was giving me a hard time. He goes, rash guard and gi, you're overheating. And everybody was like, you okay, man? You ain't going to make it. But the point is, even Chris Reggs came up and he goes, man, you did all the videos. How are you having to ask questions on this stuff? It's like, I still need my reps, until you actually do it and get it done to you. I mean, I've probably looked at more of this stuff than just about anybody except for Coach Erik. I mean, it's what I do all day, every day. And it didn't make much of a difference on the mat. I'm not anywhere near the best guy on the mat. And I've been doing this for decades. I met Coach in probably 93, 94. And I'm not the best guy on the mat.
For sure. There's this book. I don't know if you ever, I think it's called The Talent Code. I'll have to double check. I'm pretty sure it's called Talent Code. And it basically talks about, uses all these examples of how you basically develop myelin in your brain to accomplish tasks. And I try to do the same thing with drills. And the thing is it can't just be drilling like repetition drilling, like doing arm bars, doing this. You have to kind of set drills up and make almost like games within grappling that make you elicit those specific responses. For example, sometimes let's say we're doing sit-up sweeps and kimuras from closed guard position. I'll go through the template when, coach has like a three-piece template of 3 ways that he lets you set it up the most. We'll show those. And then what we'll do is I'll set it up where bottom guy, you're in the closed guard. You're trying to get the sit-up sweep or the Kimura. Top guy, you can't pass. You can only defend, but you have to stay in the guard. So now what that's doing is now it's a live training drill. You're starting to develop just that little piece of the game, right? And, obviously that's mostly kinesthetic, but they've shown there's a lot of success. And in that book, they give tons and tons of examples of how to do that and how, in Brazil, how they're good at soccer because of like playing on a very small field and learn how to, juggle the ball within a very confined space. And so I think that really helps you to develop those skills so that they're ingrained in your brain, like permanently, but it's tough because I think the difficulty is the art is so expansive and so big, and there's so many cool things that you can do. You can get overwhelmed and you just want to it's so much fun to just go high five your friend and roll. But it's like, how do I pull the most success out of this little piece right there? And I found that to be the best way to elicit responses, And
that's back to within the structure lies the freedom. So if you can get into a smaller box and explore that, there's a lot of freedom in there, and there's a lot of variables that can happen in that small area, because you could just take one thing and start playing around with the pressure, start playing around with, now you crank up the cardio, now you're tired, and there's all these little variables just doing one little thing. And that's another thing Greg was saying the other day, was, when he's training Rose, Rose will pick one thing and she wants that. And then that, and then that next training session, it's the same thing. That's what we're working on right now. Over and over.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's easier the better you are. Like, I think as a black belt or instructor at the school, if I come in and I'm like, man, I got to get my arm bars better, I can manipulate the role so that I'm working those things. But you got to remember that your students aren't at that level where they're controlling the game. So you have to create an environment. And I actually learned that with my kids, because kids' minds are so much more creative and stuff. They'll do weird things that won't help them in jiu-jitsu. So you got to really crank down on the rules of, all right, you can't do this, you can't do that. All right, don't sit up like this or turn your arms like this, but you can only do it like this. And well,
that's the dance you got to do, right? With the beginner student, you got to go, all right, how much is the right amount? Not too much to fire hose them, but enough that they can get. And then they can repeat, and then the pyramid goes up or the triangle goes up, and it's like, now you're specialized, and then those other things come in. That's when it's, the pressure goes way up, or whatever the other variables, because the better you get and the more people who are better, especially if you're getting into competition, like 2 things work. You can't do all these things against high-level guys. It's just it's not going to, because you're all good.
It always cracks me up. Every time I get an MMA fighter, it's like something will happen where like, man, I got to get better at leg lock defense. And I'm like, you're fighting a wrestler, dude. Just stick to what we're doing right here. You're okay. We don't have to do leg lock defense right now. You're not fighting Gordon Ryan in the UFC. I get that all the time, man. Sorry, Alan, I cut you off, man.
No, it's okay. I think, I feel the same way. I think it's obviously because most of my stuff over the years, most of what I've taught has been either with a combative mindset or just combatives, encompassing striking, grappling, and weapons. And for me, it's always, there's so many variables which are completely out of your control, whether it's environmental, whether it's multiple people, there's countless variables that could happen. Low light, really bright light, sand, flip-flops, most of those things you cannot control. So as the variables increase, your answers need to be extremely simple. And I kind of take that approach with everything, right? And it's kind of why I've kind of developed the way I teach the way I have, because it's always, what's a simple method that is sustainable under different degrees of pressure and stress amongst the largest amount of variables. Within that, you will find your own path, right? And then you kind of can do it modularly. But on the other end, one thing that I want to mention too is student-wise, we're talking about kind of the instructor version of that. I've always thought of myself as not the most talented, not the smartest, not the most athletically gifted on the mat. So if I can teach it to myself, I should be able to teach it to anyone. And a big part of that is kind of learning how to learn. And that quote's from Billy Robinson, who I've had a chance to train with and was amazing. But it really is, you have to actually learn how to learn. Some people are just super gifted. One of the best students I ever had was autistic and dyslexic. And I would literally show a piece of something and he would just go do it. And I was like, how are you doing this? This is insane. It's just a way he was able to process things. And it's being able to understand that. Not everyone can do that. So if you can break things down in a simple form and distribute it that way, it allows for the most amount of freedom, as you were saying, Bob, and the most amount of creativity within that space. People will develop their own techniques, quote unquote techniques, and having you never show them. They'll come up with sweeps and leg locks and throws that have never been shown to them or they've never seen before, just because they understand the principles correctly.
That's awesome. That's the Guru Dan thing. I know I've mentioned it before. It's he said it a long time ago. He goes, I'm going to show you this, and then you're going to play with this, and you're going to start figuring things out, and you're going to go, man, I'm a genius. But you're not. It was right there. You're just rediscovering it.
Exactly.
It was always there. You just found it. little bit of humility, but yeah, that's great, guys. I think it's important to talk about that stuff because and also keep the beginner's mind and stay humble. You know, because I'm kind of in that place right now. You know, I've been doing martial arts since 1979. You know, and I met Coach Erik, and I think it was 93 or 94. Pat Finley will watch this and check me on it. He had him out for a seminar in Maryland, but that was back in the long hair, the ponytail days, and making us do Shudo footwork and all that stuff. It's pretty cool, but it's good to, you know, stay humble and keep the beginner's mind. Cause I'm sort of in that right now. I'm just about to turn 55, you know, soon. And like, I'm kind of busted up and in one of those, and you go through, sometimes you feel like, man, I really have this now. I'm doing great. And I'm not in one of those right now. I'm just feeling pretty humble because I've been writing with Erik a lot, and I'm just seeing how freaking good some of these guys are. And, you know,
they get better. They get better every year.
Yeah. And even the newer guys, like on the mat, playing around with them. And I'm like, damn, like, how good is everybody? It's like, geez, I'm so humble. And I think it keeps you that way if you actually roll and, you know, and train and really do stuff. You stay that way, rather that you don't want to be that guy on the side with the big head and, you know, I'm the man and all that, because that ends up getting checked eventually. I'd rather stay humble and go, yeah, man, that's cool. You whipped my ass today. It's great. That's okay. Now let's go study some more stuff. But right now, I think Alan Baker's in the same place as me right now, because Alan's got a bunch of injuries and it's just, and then you get older, and then once again, because Guru is like Yoda, I'm always thinking of stuff, and Erik's becoming that too. Like it's like, yeah, you're right, man. All that stuff you were saying about every decade, the longer you're in the game, you're going to go through these cycles where,
yeah, man,
I'm just not feeling it right now, but I got to get through it and work my way through it and keep going. Yeah. It's just, I mean, I'm just kind of in one of those right now. You know, I'm going to roll around with my training partner is almost 60. So we look like a couple of stuffed animals rolling around on the mat. I told Erik, he goes, you got to film your training sessions and show me those. I was like, hell no. It's so embarrassing. A couple old geezers rolling around on the mat trying to choke each other.
No, but that's really fascinating, because people don't, you know, there's things that have come about the past, you know, 8 to 10 years or so, I guess, with talking about as you get older and how you can train, but no one really talks. I mean, obviously I've seen Guru Dan talk about it, and we talk about it kind of nerding out a little bit, but no one ever discusses being able to do, besides being a genetic super person, how you can continue to train in a fashion that keeps you healthy, that keeps you learning, that preferably prevents injuries for the most part. And no one ever talks about that. And I don't know why. It's, I guess, because by the time people reach that that pinnacle or that echelon, they've already fallen off most of the time. People achieve whatever rank and then kind of disappear at some point. But for those who are staying in it, not a whole lot of people talk about that and what their practices are, what their procedures are, what their habits are in order to continue to do that into old age.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it's, you really have to be adaptable to change. I think I'm 42, and it's like this year I've seen a huge change in just my approaching with my students, training with them. Before it would be like, we get after it, we do this. And now it's like, you know what? I'm on the mats a lot. This is a little bit too much, I'm pending another elbow surgery, and you're just like, maybe I should be a little bit smarter on the way that I approach this. But you see that some people have a real hard time being adaptable to that change. And then they said, well, I can't fight the way I used to, so I just give up, so you really have to have a conversation with yourself and say, like, man, I have to figure this out, or else it's not going to last,
Oh, been having lots of those conversations with myself and my training partner recently.
Yeah.
You have to.
I mean, I just graduated a couple guys to black belts, and it's like, I got 23 to 25-year-old black belts that are, some of them, one of them is an SF, he's an animal, it's just like, you have to come to terms with, you're not going to be the toughest guy on the mats forever. Nope. It's and that's kind of where I'm at, where it's like you realize it's like, well, my knowledge base is really why people are here and coming to me, not because I'm the guy that can beat the crap out of them, and being able to hone in on that and really develop that guy.
That's wonderful. Yeah. And I mean, we're all getting there, and just being able to train people, but still, it's like Alan Chambers was just saying, you still got to do it. Like I never want to stop. And I keep, cause he's one of my heroes. I keep going back to Guru Dan, he's still doing it. Like he's still, he probably still trains more than anybody.
Oh, he takes private. Last time I went to the gym, I went to go watch his jiu-jitsu class, and he was taking a 2-hour private lesson in Kali from some instructor.
Yeah, can you imagine that? Like you're gonna teach Guru Dan,
right? Oh man, it was humbling. It was humbling to see a guy that just, the way he comports himself, man, super cool.
I'm not sure what I would do if I was standing in front of Guru and he goes, "Teach me this." Like, I can't teach you anything.
Right?
What am I gonna teach you? He'd be like Erik going, okay, you're going to get me. You're going to submit me. No, I'm not. Yeah, I rolled with him in Pittsburgh a long time ago when he had the knee. His knee was really bad, and I don't know if he had surgery on it or not, but he used to dislocate all the time. I was rolling with him at Don Guerin's place, and I was on the mat, and Erik was doing things, and I don't know if I'd call it rolling. I was doing the best I could. And Erik was doing drills on me. It was literally that, it was that pathetic. He could do whatever he wanted, and I was really trying. He's just moving around, knee on belly, and then his knee dislocated. And he's like, oh, hold on, and like turned a real weird way, and he goes, don't move. And I'm like, what do I do? He goes, put your foot on my thigh. And I'm like holding his foot, and he goes, okay, and put your other foot on my hip on the other side. And he goes, okay, pull. And I went, and it popped back in. I was like, oh man, you got to go. He goes, okay, let's go. We kept going. I'm like, oh my God, what's wrong with you?
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, but anyway, I've been getting, and that was one of the rare times when I actually got to roll around with him, because most of the time I'm just running around with the camera watching you guys do it. Yeah, you guys get to play with him all the time. So, which is part of the reason, it's one of the sacrifices or one of the penalties I have to pay sometimes for being the media guy running around with the camera. I'm not getting those reps as much as I would like to. I want to be in the camps too, like with you guys, sweating with you and doing all these things, because it really matters. You got to do it.
For sure.
Like I say, I've looked at it probably more than anybody, and I'm nowhere near the best guy. It's the guys that are on the mat that are getting those hours in every day. It makes you really good. Like Alan's, what is it? Living Mechanics.
Oh yeah.
But you taught a really cool thing on that on one of the CDPs, and I think that's where your shoulder went out. You were
Yeah,
showing.
I remember that. I was talking about that the other day.
I still use some of that. It's like from
It's
fetal.
just from surviving against, younger, bigger. After a while, you're like, well, I'm going to be here. I got to get better at it. So you start figuring those little things out just to get to the point where you might not get out, but you're okay.
Yep.
It's really smart, methodical way to dig yourself out. Like you're a big guy smashing down on you, and that's applicable to me, because it's like, well, I can put you up on a frame and I can get a few breaths, and just kind of relax and sort of squirm my way out and
Yeah.
use that alignment. That was a nice. No one had shown me that before. I was like, oh, that's pretty cool.
It's actually multiplied since, turned into a full program. People kept asking for it. And
Yeah. See, there you go. There's the innovation from within the structure. That's exactly what we're talking about. It's like he had a unique way to look at it. I'm like, man, I've seen a lot of stuff, and I hadn't seen anybody look at it like that. That's pretty cool, And Alan Chambers did a De La Riva workshop for us, and he and Ryan Gruen did a little bit of material. It's in the online university, but boy, that was cool too. Just the way you broke that down, I'm like, damn, he really does know this pretty deep. You just say De La Riva, and I'm like, yeah, okay. And he was like, oh no, it's this one, this one, this one, this type, and all these other things. I was like, man, that's a whole thing.
I think we're planning on getting these guys to do more of that in the future too. So we should see more of them on the online university.
Yeah, that's one of the things we want to do is get your take on it, get your take on things, and your presentations on it. And we've already seen a lot of that anyway, the Instagram things and stuff people put up to see how that's part of being able to do that job. And then training other affiliates, because how can you teach effectively to a group of people if you're talking like this, whatever, you're down here, you do, if you don't have any presentation skill, if you can't own a room, that's part of it too. You have to be able to do it. And that's stuff we need to work with the affiliates on. It's like, what piece of your puzzle is missing? What's missing? Where do you need work? And Alan Baker's been doing a lot of coaching with the guys one-on-one. They'll call in and talk to them. He'll schedule meetings with them and, really work with them, help them up their game. And we want to, keep that going. So we can kind of keep it tight, stay humble, but keep growing and make sure everybody's getting value out of everything. But I'm wandering all over the place. And I know we're coming up on the end of the hour. Did we have anything else we need to cover today, Alan Baker?
Real quick, guys, what are you working on yourself as far as your training? What are you trying to polish right now? Just real quick, Jess.
Oh, so you're gonna go Alan first. That's okay. Well, right now, I had a bunch of young guys who wanted to start fighting again. So I'm getting into I started consistently teaching mixed martial arts classes again. So I just had some fighters fight this weekend. We did pretty well. Also, I'm getting ready to get kettlebell certified. So I'm getting ready to go to RKC and get my certification for that, and starting to do some private training with some of my students and things. And jiu-jitsu, just everyday grind, man, just with the guys and keeping at it. I mean, this week we're doing open guard passes, and I believe level 7 or 8, I think. And all right, that's pretty much it.
Perfect.
Alan?
So for my own personal development, now that I've started, we're not through COVID, obviously, but the past 8 or so months, I've been really diving into kind of the newer game, the inverted berimbolo, leg lock type game, and kind of trying to deconstruct it for people that may not necessarily have the physical attributes to do that, and also how to defend against it. So I've been really focused in on that for myself. I'm sure at some point that'll turn into a teaching moment. But where I focused as far as teaching has been a lot of my weapons curriculum that is really close quarters based. It involves impact, edged, and projectile weapons, but mostly edge weapons that I've been teaching, and understanding the control points within that. And one of the things I always tell people, even when I wasn't teaching weapons, my focus was always, well, if you're not sure about what to do, put a knife in your hand. And people go, well, what do you mean? I don't understand that. We're doing BJJ with the kimono. I just put a knife in your hand and it'll tell you how to move correctly. And people think I'm nuts, but then they do it and they realize, wow, this makes a huge difference. I either need to stay away from the knife or get closer to the knife or have some semblance of control in either direction. And it makes you really, really tighten up your game. It even works with striking as well. I've experimented with that. But for me, that's what I've continued to develop and teach over the past, really throughout COVID. I've spent a lot of time working in on that.
Awesome.
Nice.
All right, guys.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thanks for being with us. We're going to wrap up this episode. What is it, 35? Very cool. We got, what are we doing next week? We're talking to Rick Young next week, right?
Yeah. This is the second one with Coach Rick. It's been a while.
Very cool. Very cool. And we're lining up some more. Coach Erik's lining up some more stuff. And these two guys are going to be back on a regular basis because we want to see more of them. But thanks for joining us today, guys.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Absolutely. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, I'll stop recording, and then you guys can really say what you think.
I was like, when you were saying that you got Rick Young on, I was like, it's going to be way cooler than this one.